Cheers and happy 2019. It's a new moon eclipse today, and it feels like a beginning. And we start out this new year with a bang, astrologically. And with a clink of cups, and with an eye-to-eye greeting, presence, we welcome in this moment. Take a sip of life, of nature, and the living intelligence of this moment. There's so much Capricorn going on. We're back with the wheel. My name's Amelie Grace. And there's so much Capricorn in this moment. Mercury just entered Capricorn today to join Saturn, the new moon and sun conjunction, Pluto, been there a long time, and the South Node, which moved in fall, November of 2017. I'm sorry, 2018. So, with all this heaviness, possible heaviness, I'm feeling to bring a bit of lightness to the transmission today. Because when we think about Capricorn and the immense amount of work that is on our plate right now, and that we are facing, there's this possibility inside of Capricorn of when we meet ourselves and when we go down to that bottom line and face the limitations and as I've been talking about in months prior, get really honest with ourselves and sober up around where we're actually at developmentally, what's actually in our way, and all of that, that there is a resurgence of self. There's a resurgence of naturalness, of essence, and of reclaiming our authorship of our life. I think about Saturn and Capricorn, I think about authority. And what is it going to take for you this year to come into a whole other level of integrity with your own authority? And there's so many wonderful guideposts and signs and clues, so let's dive into that. The new moon today, eclipse, is in the 54th gene key. This feels very significant. So the 54 is the shadow of greed. Pretty much what we see on the globe as far as global capitalistic takeover. And the gift is aspiration, and the city is ascension. So I think when we start looking at this gene key, I actually heard Richard talking about how every shadow of the gene key is a mirror. So, do we see ourselves in greed? Oh wait, are you seeing yourself or are you just seeing the other side of my room? I don't know, but this mirror is actually pretty dirty. Oh, oftentimes when we meet the shadows, so something as ugly and yucky as greed, and it provides us with a mirror. The mirror itself is distorted and is warped for our own safety, security. It's been shaped, it's refracted light and had a certain filter for as long as it has, sometime in our childhood probably, as a way to keep us operating secure. You know, it's an adaptive survival strategy for us to not really be able to see clearly the things that we need to see clearly. So that's part of the Capricorn medicine, and part of Saturn being in Capricorn is like, again, just that swallowing of the bitter pills, the bitterness of the medicine though, when we actually look at certain parts of ourselves. So let's clean the mirror. There's a lot of mirror cleaning right now, and I think part of cleaning the mirror, this is a willingness to see ourselves And it's also an awakening of our instinctual energy. So let me kind of go into that. This is a mirror cleaning process. I started to get super into this book. Do not judge a book by its cover. Or maybe do. Embracing ourselves. Hal Stone and Cedra Stone. This is a book about all of the various subpersonalities or selves that are in the unconscious or in the conscious that basically are, I would call them adaptive survival strategies. But the whole point of me bringing this up is that there's parts of ourselves that we disown. And then there's parts of ourselves that we really identify with. And so whether through the conditions of being raised by certain people, being raised in certain cultures, we have this like, okay, this is good and this is okay. And so I'm going to identify with being right, with being gentle, with being spiritual and pure, with being all the things. And then we disown the parts of ourselves that were like, oh, no. The parts of ourselves that received punishment from our parents, from our teachers, from those sideways looks from our friends or authority figures. And so there's all this energy inside of ourselves that is being trapped, basically. And I think a lot of this comes down to instinctual base energy. And this brings us back to the 54. The 54th gene key is really dealing with base, instinctive, primal energies that we see in the animal kingdom. The will to power. The sort of dog eat dog, you know, that when sometimes you look at animals and the way that they form hierarchical structures and the way that they kill off their children so that they can, like, there's all these things that oftentimes we don't want to see about nature because we kind of glorify it as this perfect, harmonious, like fitting our like warped view of what perfection is inside of our cultures. That we don't want to see. That's actually very brutal. And many of us do see that and we laugh. But here's what I'm getting at is that the 54th shadow of greed, it touches into the place in us, that survival place that is using energy and power to uphold the self. It's the greedy, power-hungry part of ourselves that has a driving ambition to reach a higher position. So many of us hear that shadow, and when that mirror is held up in its distortion, we go, oh God, that is the problem with the world. Look at all of the ways that those people are doing that thing. And it's true. There's like, the statistics are 80 people or 62. I've heard different statistics, whether 80 people or 62 people own over half of the world's wealth. That's just staggering. So the price that we've paid for this program going on unchecked is immense, and I'm getting ahead of myself. First, it's just that we project it outward and we say, look at all how that's horrible. That's not me. But part of this whole process of alchemizing our shadow and getting really honest with ourselves about what's ours and how we can, to me, it's like dismantling the inner power structures. If we're going to create social transformation, then we have to face the way that those, or social transformation, yes, then we have to face the way that society's systems of power are actually operating in us. And this is a perfect example of that. Because what happens is, let's say that we disown our greedy nature. How dare we ever identify with us being like that? No, that would be very disruptive to my sense of self and my self-concept that I carry around to feel good. So the thing about cleaning that mirror, having whatever it takes, I feel like it takes time to cultivate the kind of relationship with the self that is gonna be okay to see some of our ugly parts. Like if we're having a lot of inner abuse, inner punishment, inner judgment, and a lot of like destable like parts of ourselves kind of running the show, it's probably not a very good idea to like really go in and be like, that's me, because we might hurt ourselves with that. And yet I think that's the process, is it just kind of, it's, So let's have a sip of tea. What I'm saying is that when we feel ready to own our disowned parts, there is an immense amount of energy and primal, instinctual, animal-like energy that actually gets to fuel our creative service. And that's what aspiration and the gift of aspiration and the city of ascension is all about in this 54th gene key. It's about transforming the brute energies and shedding the skins of the lower self into the energy that's going to fuel the things that we're here to do, and meeting our purpose and having the energy and literally the instinctual primal life force wild energy that most of our culture, especially Western culture, has really shut off. Whether through the age of enlightenment or the paradigm of right and wrong and religious paradigms, we have shut off that part of us that is just instinctual and like Shakti or sexuality or aggression that's actually just here to power things. So, gosh, I'm talking a lot. So, are you willing to acknowledge where greed lives in you and be okay with that? I think a lot of this is about the self-parenting. It's about the witness who's aware and is able to just see those things and recognize them and be compassionate with them and understand them and watch them transform, because the more we push them away, actually, that's when they take on their really ugly rearing beast like shadow nature, and they become the warped things that we see in our society, which is the cost that we pay. So when we see them, they actually aren't the beasts that we think they are. They actually have these gifts and skills, like this release of energy, like this capacity to really own and have authorship for taking the reins of our life and saying, yes, I will climb a ladder and be of service at a, and fully own my life. Maybe we should play a round of the game. There's other energies here. I think before we play a round of the game, which I'm really excited to do, I want to talk about the 61, because today, so Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, and it's been in the 54th gene key over the last couple years, in and out. And just today, on this eclipse, Pluto moved into the 61st gene key, and it will be there for a while. It'll dip back into the 54 a tiny bit later this year, but then it's basically in the 61 from here on out. And what I'm calling this this particular aspect and activation is courting the creative, because the 61 is the gift of inspiration. And it's the shadow of psychosis, where the conditions of our mind keep us from that creative, instinctual energy and sanctity at the city, where everything becomes an altar of the holy. So when we're touching into the 61 in relation to the 54, and I think it's really good that we're like this whole year, there's this very dramatic like point that comes into focus of, okay, we're finishing up here with the 54 because Pluto's been working it, and this year is about really continuing to transform the patterns of greed into creative service. And now we're coming into how 61 wants to be of service, which is the continued breakdown of all the concepts in our mind that keep us from that energy being able to move, and all the fractures of self. So very much similar things: owning our disowned parts, seeing the parts of ourselves that we are really over-identified with, and getting back into right relation, where then we can be at the altar of art spirit. And for me and for us at Wonderland in our community, it's as if we sit around the central hearth of art spirit, of the creative essence. And to me, I just see creativity and us as humans wielding our purpose to create, that this is a very healing aspect to these times. And my friend, she recently put on a big solstice event, and it was a collaborative effort of a number of friends. And something that was modeled at that event that I feel called to share about is how every piece was honoring where it came from. So if it had elements of Indian culture, or if it had elements, even just the opening of like where we stand on the land that was once the Chinook, that was once the Klickitat, that had rivers running through these very streets and earth, and honoring the wood that the building that we're in is made of, and honoring where our ancestors came from, and where just any element of honoring. It was before the piece was made, there was an honoring, and not like every time and systematically. It was just like organically melded and woven through, and it was just an incredible modeling of how we can start to really honor where we come from. Capricorn is the past, and coming into right relation with the past and where we come from. And I say this all because, in 2019, Neptune's going to be making its entrance into the 22nd gene key of honor, or of graciousness, but from dishonor to honoring through grace. And so I just wanted to bring the transmission of honor here today, because it feels like completing the cycle, and where so much of this healing can come in. Honoring the elements, honoring, if I'm going to sit down and play the piano, and I'll just share this little story. I came in to make music the other night, and it was a little clanky, and I'm like, I'm trying to get into my art spirit. I'm trying to get into my creative flow, and it's clanky. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's off here? And I realized, I haven't really reset my altar in a while. It's kind of dusty and been cast over to the side, and so I went over to my altar, and I started to blow the dust off, and I started even just touch the things and blow some smoke, and realized, my life is an offering, so I want to make an offering to life. And so I lit some sage, and I just had that, and it opened up this whole prayerful space and shift in consciousness and mode of operating, where now I was in relationship with life, and the creative essence turned on, and I was in flow state for hours after that. And it was so beautiful to see how we can wield the life force. I can talk a long time. So we're gonna roll the dice, and this is, let's put our minds together right now. I know you're not watching this right now because it's not a live video, but collective mind, just centering around the source of life, and just asking for a planet to reveal itself to us today on this eclipse. What energy wants to reveal itself to us? Pluto, straight up, Pluto. Pluto in the 61, making its transition into the 61 today. I love the poignancy of that. Okay, we're gonna draw a card. I haven't done this game in so long. It's so fun to see this board up again and get back into the creativity. So I hope we pull a creative contemplation card. You know, I'm kind of feeling like I just want to pull a creative contemplation card because we've done so much. So I'm going to draw until I get a creative contemplation card. That's not cheating, okay? Because I'm the author of this game. In collaboration with Elijah Parker. See, I just said I'm the author of this game, but then I needed to honor the fact that, no, I had a co-creator in this. Me and Elijah. I hope you're having fun. Keep pulling life cards, which are all contemplation cards, which is great, but I think we need to bring some art spirit into this moment. Wow, they really want us to be contemplating here. There's equal amounts of creative contemplation cards. So I'm going to just do this one for fun. It's a transit card, and it says roll the number dice and move counterclockwise that many keys. Where's the number dice? You guys, you people, you all, I don't have a number dice. I'm not going to edit this. I think we're having too much fun. Mistakes are magic. Yay! Creative contemplation. Poetry. Pause and write a poem inspired by this key, 61, and then recite it. Okay. So as you know, or some of you may know, I just like to freestyle. So I'm going to freestyle my poem. When I look at you, the camera seems so limited. I'm viewing through a certain scope that gives me the sense that I'm in prison. But if I wasn't seeing from that wider perspective of all around 360, I might think that that was reality. Oh, you see me through this little lens, and I feel squished, but I may not notice that anxiety squeezes in. And I will go about my life thinking that life through the mind is real, and how you see me through that social mirror is how I must censor the real that is coming through, making real less real. Not unreal, but flappy, kind of like a facade. Blown like dust if I was to tune into that deeper breath of God. Oh, no, but not the God that comes in with all these principles, the one with laws that says this is the way to the gateway to the infinite. No, that God that leads me through that trusted step when I start to listen to life and start to tune in to the vibration that's all around me. When I come into that deeper breath, it breaks through my contractions and filters. This small box in which you see me becomes a portal to infinity and beyond. And beyond. Be on. How do you turn on your creative essence? What is breaking through and down in your mind that is no longer serving? What are ways of being and ways of operating that you start to see and they're just feeling so false or so empty or so consistently agitating? How can we breathe our way back to the center and listen and hold and be in conversation and allow, accept, and embrace. So, there's many things I wanted to say today, aside from look into the mirror of yourself. This new moon is in sextile, a very tight sextile with Neptune. So I want to drop the compassionate inquiry. Sextiles are a synergistic, dynamic allyship, creative kind of dynamic. And so how can you open into the inquiry? This is the 63rd gene key. Inquire into your nature with the compassion of Neptune, with the capacity to feel the discomfort and the pain. Chiron in the 36, tomorrow entering into the 25th gene key. All these pivotal moments. This is a pivotal moment. I know you feel that. How has life been leading you to your next edge? And what is the instructions that you're receiving through your life experience as far as what's going to get you to that next real integrated step? The presence process has been coming back through. Being with the experience of that, of whatever's arising. The witness, being aware, being able to just see without being all wrapped up in it. You know, when we're talking about unhooking from Capricorn, it takes a lot of neutrality and equanimity and awareness to be able to see a lot of this yucky stuff. There's so much more to say. Venus is in a trine, in a grand trine. Chiron and the North Node have been in a trine for months. And now, and last time we talked, Mercury was the one in the grand trine seat, and today it's actually Venus. So there is a resolution, as far as I can tell, from the Venus retrograde that was happening all through the fall. From September through December, Venus was in its retrograde cycle, and whatever that brought up from the unconscious in our relationships is now popping into this portal of healing grace, of healing Chiron, of the deep wounding, the wounding of humanity, 36, in its trine with the North Node in Cancer. So emotional healing and forward motion, how it's drawing us into our destiny. So the healing of the hearts, you know, I feel like I have to pause and oh, that's what I meant to say, is that this was meant to be kind of a short drop because I'm a part of, I have the honor to be invited into Astrology Hub this year. I'm going to be a part of the Inner Circle. My lunar month that I'm going to be teaching in is Taurus. But what they do is every year in January, they do this whole forecast for 2019 marathon. So it's an astrological forecast for the year, and you're going to get to meet the 13 astrologers that are being featured in the Inner Circle. And I'm one of them. And so I'm going to be offering my perspective and view through astrology and the gene keys for 2019 on January 16th at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm going to send links out and stuff, but I thought this would be a great way to introduce that. So thank you for listening and being in the journey. This evolutionary journey has got a lot of heat right now. So many blessings.